Uh, Good morning, members, councillors, officers, and members of the public. Just to check that we are live streaming before we go ahead. Okay, thank you. A few matters of the meeting protocol. No fire alarm is scheduled this morning, so should the fire alarm sound, please take it seriously. Leave the room by the nearest exit and meet by the stand at the far end of the car park. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and a boom microphone will be brought over to you. If you don't speak into the microphone, you will not be heard on the live stream, so please wait for the microphone to reach you. Please remain seated while speaking. Please keep your points short, and I ask members not to repeat points that have already been raised. Voting will be by a show of hands unless there is a majority request otherwise. Should the meeting be adjourned, any filming must cease unless the express permission from those being filmed has previously been obtained. During any adjournment, I would ask that members, the public and officers please leave the room until the meeting reconvenes. Item 1 on the agenda then is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair, I have apologies from Councillors Cook, Evans, Jeffrey, Parker, Nutley, Linda Petherick, Foden, Thorne and Gribble.
Councillor Phipps.
And Councillor Patch. Councillor Parker can't, please.
Do you get? Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the council meetings of the 26th of July and the 6th of September, as in pages 7 to 10 in the agenda.
So moved, Chair.
Pardon?
I move.
Moved and seconded. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? None. And those abstentions, please.
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you. Now, item 3 on the agenda is announcements. I'd like to start with an announcement, please. I would like to put on record my thanks to the Vice Chair, Councillor Clarence, for having stood in for me on a number of occasions, council meetings and external appointments, whilst I have been unwell. He's done a lot of work on my behalf, for which I thank him very much. I believe the Executive Member for Homes, Communities and Cost of Living would like to address the Council under the announcements.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Recently we had the tragic news that a coroner had concluded that the death of a toddler in Rochdale was caused by a respiratory condition caused by exposure to mould in his home. Awar Bishak's father repeatedly raised the issue with their Rochdale Housing Association, but reportedly no action was taken. Having previously helped residents in my ward to be rehoused due to unacceptable levels of damp and mould on the wall, I've been looking into what action Teignbridge District Council currently takes. In Teignbridge, some 20% of the housing is privately rented. That's over 12,500 homes. And some 9%, nearly 6,000 homes, is rented from registered providers of social housing. Teignbridge does not have the resource to regularly inspect each and every one of those nearly 20,000 homes. We do have a team of some 3.2 full-time equivalent officers who inspect properties in reaction to complaints and issues that are raised. Officers will assess a property under the housing legislation using the Housing Health and Safety Rating System, which is a risk-based approach and looks at potential hazards. There are 29 types of hazards that are considered, main ones including excess cold, falls and trips, structural collapse, electrics, fire, damp and mould. Categorisation of hazard type is made by assessing the likelihood of an occurrence that could cause harm over the next 12 months and the range of harms that could result and the vulnerability of the residents to those types of hazards. The main hazards are excess cold and falls. Where officers find a Category 1 hazard, the Council has a duty to take action. And if Category 2 hazards are identified, they have a power to take action. We have recently served a civil penalty notice, including a Category 1 damp and mould hazard. This was a fine for £10,000 in Teignmouth on a landlord for non-compliance with an improvement notice. The majority of housing condition complaints occur in the winter months, and we're expecting an increase in the number of complaints and inquiries in the coming weeks. In addition to complaints, Teignbridge also follows up the regular EPC reports for energy efficiency that happen every time a home is sold or rented. This identifies homes likely to feel cold or maybe damp. Low energy efficiency rated homes are chased up by our officers. A rented property must have a minimum of an E rating on its EPC, and Teignbridge contacts landlords of non-compliant rated properties. We are currently pursuing a number of penalty notices on such properties. Teignbridge also has a property agent rating scheme, inspects HMOs, and works closely with the registered providers to improve the condition of social housing as well as private rented. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you to Councillor Wrigley. Item 4 on the agenda is declarations of interest. I don't think we have any. Oh, we do. Councillor Petherington.
Thank you, Chairman. It's regarding item 6, the report of the Independent Remuneration Panel and the recommendations from the Procedures Committee. Within the Procedures Committee recommendations, there is a recommendation that the Chair of Standards receives an additional responsibility allowance. As I'm married to the Chair of Standards, I think I need not to vote and also not join in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. That's noted. Any further declarations of interest? No. Do we have any public questions?
No public questions, Chair.
No public questions, thank you. So item 6 on the agenda is for the Council to consider the report of the Independent Remuneration Panel, and I understand that Leader would wish to move this.
Thank you, Chairman. And if I may, if it may be helpful to Councillor John Petherick, the recommendations are intended to take effect from after the elections in May. So any decision of the Council today wouldn't be specific to the current Chair of Standards. Chairman, in moving the recommendations set out on page 2 and 3...
17 recommendations, yeah.
Yes, there are 17 of them. In moving the recommendations on page 2 and 3, I in particular want to pay thanks and tribute to the Independent Remuneration Panel, which is chaired by independent member of the public, Derek Phillips, who's here at the meeting today. I know the Independent Remuneration Panel met with and canvassed the views and opinions from a number of councillors and did a lot of work in setting out its recommendations, which were then considered by the Procedures Committee. The Procedures Committee has made some different recommendations to Council, and in part that's because we are in the final few months of this Council period, and when the new Council is elected in May, it may make some decisions about the kind of committee structure it would wish, and we felt that the new Council, if it does have a different committee structure, would want to take advice from the Independent Remuneration Panel at that time and have an allowances scheme that reflected any change in committee structures. For example, whether there was a single overview and scrutiny committee, whether governance and audit scrutiny were merged, and those things generally, so which aren't happening this side of May. In particular, I want to draw members' attention to recommendation 1, and this is that the basic allowance is increased by the average percentage increase for local government employment staff, and that increase would be from after the election in May. So no one today is voting on an increase in their current allowances. It would apply after the elections. And that would help both to keep pace with general cost of living increases, though not significantly in line with inflation, and it encourages more people to stand for election because there is at least a reasonable allowance for the work that councillors do. Most of the other recommendations, Chairman, maintain the status quo, and they've not endorsed or accepted the recommendations for change that were made by the Independent Remuneration Panel. So broadly, it's a status quo approach. Then, Chairman, on the page 3, just a couple that I want to talk about. Item 10 is the special responsibility allowance for the chair of a standards committee. Procedures committee felt that a payment per meeting basis could result in an unregulated amount of money being paid to the chair of a committee, and so the procedures committee felt it was better to tie that with an existing allowance and matched it to the chair of audit scrutiny as a balance. And then at 16, the parental leave policy is recommended to be adopted, but with a review so that it would look at including foster care leave, parental leave, and the requirement to ensure confidentiality with regard to legislation for the 6-month rule. So for colleagues' awareness, as you might know, if a councillor is needing leave of absence, at the moment, that's a decision for council, discussed in public. That may result in information which is personal about a member's health or family circumstances being discussed in an open arena. The Procedures Committee felt that it was quite right that the decision was made by council, but perhaps it ought to be in an arena which is private and exempt, and how you balance the need for public probity against the personal confidentiality of any councillor. So that's a review that needs to be done. And then at item 17, Chairman, the present list of approved duties within the scheme is adopted, and also the confirmation there that a councillor attending a Teignbridge District Council meeting as an observer rather than a member of the body is able to claim the relevant expense. So, for example, if a councillor were attending a meeting with the executive, they weren't on the executive, but were just simply attending to observe a debate, not necessarily to take part, this clarifies that they would be able to claim their travel allowance were they so to do, Chairman. So in that, and with that explanation, I move the recommendations as set out, the 17 of them on pages 2 and 3, Chairman, and Councillor Dewist seconded before the microphone came. Thank you.
Councillor Bullivant.
Thank you. A point of clarity, please. We are normally recommendations we normally receive either to approve or to note a proposal like this. As the leader has said, this decision is open for the next administration to make its own decisions about what is applied. What do we mean, therefore, by accepting the report, given that our normal approach is to either approve or to note? Surely we should be noting this report and leaving it for the next administration to apply it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bullivant. Councillor Connett.
Thank you, Chairman. So to accept, as in to approve the recommendations, I was explaining why the Procedures Committee had recommended broadly a status quo approach, because a new council may consider a different committee structure and then, on advice from the Independent Remuneration Panel, may come to a different view about special responsibility allowances. The Procedures Committee felt that that shouldn't be dealt with now. We should continue as we are for the remaining 6 months. So to be clear, the increase in the basic allowance from May, after the election, if the council today supports that, you should vote in favour, and that would apply to the new councillors elected or returning from May. And then it's very clear that the existing committee structure and special responsibility allowances for chairs and vice chairs, what it will be from May when those people are appointed. So that continues. I was merely highlighting that the Council Procedures Committee did not get into, because there's a separate conversation on the constitutional review, whether some committees are merged or not. And the Procedures Committee didn't get into that conversation, and it broadly felt we should have a status quo. So in direct answer to Councillor Bullivant, it is a recommendation to accept or approve, so approve the recommendations that are set out, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bullivant, does that answer your query?
No, basically, if we're saying that parts of this depend on the views of the next administration, are we tying their hands by what we're issuing now? I have no issues about the points made in here. It's a matter of principle that I am asking about.
As I understand it, the new council will have all the powers necessary to review this as soon as they take office. Is that right, Councillor?
Yes, Chairman, I hope I clarified. This council has to set a remuneration policy, which is doing. I've clarified why we're mainly proposing the status quo. A new council may or may not choose to look at its committees. If it doesn't, it's got a live and active policy, and if it does choose to do it, then it can do so. And that's a matter for the next council. We're not leaving anything in abeyance. We're not pushing anything, kicking the can down the road. We're dealing with matters now, and I've tried to explain why the recommendations from the Procedures Committee are different to those which came from the advice from the Independent Remuneration Panel. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Connett. I think then we can go to the vote. The proposal is, Councillor Connett has moved that we approve the 17 recommendations as set out and those as explained by Councillor Connett. All those in favour, please. Thank you. All those against? Two, and any abstentions, please.
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you. We move on then to item 7 on the agenda, the appointment of independent persons. I believe that Democratic Services yesterday emailed to all members a briefing on the independent persons, explaining the recruitment process and a brief biographical description of each of the 5 whom we are recommended to appoint. The chair of Standards Committee, as you heard earlier, has sent her apologies. She is unwell. So I move that the recommendation of the independent panel is approved, and would ask for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. The posts were advertised in the residents' newsletter and referenced in social media. 17 expressions of interest were received, resulting in 15 applications, and a short list of 5 were called for interview, and the recommendation of the panel is that all 5 are appointed. So can we go to the vote, please? Those in favour?
Point of order.
Point of order. Sorry,
I just wondered whether we can speak to this matter.
yes, indeed. Sorry, I didn't see your hand, Councillor Jules. I
No,
apologise.
well, I wasn't invited, and no one was invited to speak to it. My one question is, I've read the CVs, and they are indeed what they are. People with reputations. I wonder if you could confirm that all people who've applied have been fully informed of the position of the council and any pending cases that may tarnish the reputation of the council in the coming months. I ask so because as someone whose reputation has been trashed by this council, I'd hate that to happen to well-meaning individuals. So I want to know that the independent persons know what they're letting themselves in for. Thank you.
I am not in a position to answer that question. I don't know if anybody else is. Monitoring officer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The situation is that the applicants who were selected for interview and were successful were informed that confirmation of their appointments is a matter for full council. There will be, depending on the outcome of today, there is intended to be a get-together with the Chair of Standards, myself, the Deputy Monitoring Officer, and the 5 successful applicants in order to discuss matters going forward, because clearly one or more of them will be involved in any complaints which are received in respect of members' conduct. At the moment, no discussions have taken place in respect of particular individuals, particular complaints, because that's not relevant to the process that we were undergoing.
Councillor Dawes, does that answer your question?
it does answer the question. Thanks. Yes, they don't know. They haven't been briefed. They don't know what they've let themselves in for. Thank you.
Any further comments on this item? In which case, can we now go to the vote, please? All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? None. And abstentions, please. Thank you. Item 8 on the agenda is the review of election fees and charges, pages 47 to 60 in the document pack. Again, I understand the leader wishes to address this.
Thank you, Chairman. The report is as set out. I'm sure members are ready, so I formally propose. Thank you.
And Chair, I second.
That's proposed by Councillor Connaught, seconded by Councillor Dewhurst. Any questions, comments, observations? Councillor Bullivant.
Thank you. Can you confirm that these are actually the national rates that we're talking about here, or are they specific for Teignbridge?
Councillor Connaught, can you respond to that?
The electoral services officers are at the back, Chair.
Sorry, I can't see. The electoral services officer will respond.
Okay. Yeah, the rates that we've got set out in our proposed scale are just applicable to Teignbridge, but what we've done for comparison purposes is based them on the current Devon County Council scale, because that's the only other one that we've got sight of. We didn't think it was appropriate to base them on national elections as they're run on a different basis.
Councillor Bullivant, does that answer your query?
Yes, thank you. I'm satisfied with that answer.
Thank you. Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Chair. Would it be possible to recommend for future consideration, perhaps, that we look at similarly, likewise, district councils in rural environments with spread out environments for voters, because that would be more pertinent, perhaps, than the whole Devon, because Devon, obviously, large conurbations of Exeter, for instance, whereas smaller district councils like Teignbridge, Teignbridge, etc., would have a much more comparative cost bearing. Thank you.
Sounds like a sensible suggestion to me. Would the electoral services officer like to respond to that suggestion?
Yes, it's a very sensible suggestion. Unfortunately, other councils won't share this information with us. We have asked them.
Let's ask again.
For reference, others are using ours, and we have shared ours with them, although they haven't shared with us. So recently, I think you'll find the proposals going to East Devon probably are exactly the same as ours, based on the same, because we've shared information there. We're happy to share, others aren't.
If there are no further comments, can we go to the vote, please? The leader has been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? None. And do we have any abstentions? I see 3. Thank you. That's carried, I see.
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you. Item 9 on the agenda is the Rural England Prosperity Fund, covered by pages 61 to 80 in the document pack. And I believe the Executive Member for Economy and Jobs would like to say a word.
Thank you, Chair. So again, I'm assuming that everybody's read the report, so I'd like to move to accept the recommendations en bloc. I would like to thank everyone who's worked extremely hard on bringing this report to Council in what has been a short space of time to satisfy the application timetable. And I think all members will appreciate the amount of work that's gone into this. I move to accept the recommendations as set out.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Wrigley has seconded that. There are 3 recommendations that members will have seen on page 61 of the document pack, and that's what we are being asked to vote on. But Councillor Wrigley would like to make a point.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to thank the officers who have pulled this together. I'd like to thank the officers who have pulled this together in a remarkably short space of time. This is another government initiative that landed on our desks with a ludicrously brief period to put it together. This report has to be put into government tomorrow. So it is vital that we make sure everybody knows about it, so we've done briefings around the council. There is one slight amendment to the recommendations, which I hope Councillor Jeffreys will take, in that recommendation number 3 is slightly inconsistent with the rest of the report, and it should read, in consultation with the executive members for economy and business and communities and IT in the delegation powers, which is the usual thing that we do.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffreys, are you happy with that? Thank you. Councillor Woolard, I'll come to you in a moment, but the Managing Director would like to make... No. Okay. No. Councillor Bullivant.
Can I have further clarity, please? Previously, I am a trustee of the Newton Abbot Community Transport Association. For that reason, because as a trustee I'm automatically made a director of that, I believe that because an issue here potentially may impact on the Newton Abbot Community Transport Association operations, and the advice from the on previous situations, I don't think I should take part in any discussion or vote on this. So could I have clarity that that will be the case? I should not take part in any discussion or debate.
Would the monitoring officer like to comment on that, please?
I'm not quite sorry. I'm not quite sure what the issue is for the councillor. I'm not. At the end of the day, I think that it's a matter for each and every individual councillor to decide whether they have an interest or not. I'm not quite. But having said that, I'm not quite sure what the specific issue is. I think this isn't. This is a generic report that covers a whole gambit of organisations across the district. So the organisation that you belong to will benefit no differently to any others if it was to benefit at all. Is that not the case?
I believe the situation is they may benefit, and therefore for that reason I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm taking part in something which I'm not qualified so to do.
Thank you. Councillor Wrigley.
Thank you, Chair. It's only because there's a specific proposal in here that is looking into improving transport for the community that might involve the community transport organisation directly in terms of the implementation. I think that's the only concern. It's not yet decided, it's not yet determined. It could be implemented in a number of different ways. I think that's the only concern. I personally don't see that there's any conflict for Councillor Bullivant.
Any further comment, Councillor Purser?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to very much welcome these proposals. Certainly in the Team Valley, transport and connectivity are very high on the list. I'm just wondering if the bid is successful, when are we likely to be able to submit plans and programmes to draw down on the money? What's the sort of timescale? Unless I've missed it in the report, sorry.
Councillor Wrigley.
There is a 3-year spend time frame on this, if I recall correctly. The last shared prosperity bid, we were promised to know the results in October. It's now the end of November and we still don't know. That was supposed to be available in April next year. So I would anticipate this being spring next year in terms of where it goes. Because of the speed of having to pull this bid together, there is still a lot of work to do in terms of the detail and the implementation of this plan. And in that, we will obviously be consulting with all the various organisations that could take part in doing this. So over the next 6 months, I would suggest.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? If not, we will proceed to the vote. We're asked to vote for the 3 recommendations with a slight amendment, as pointed out by Councillor Wrigley on page 61 of the document pack. All those in favour, please. Thank you. Those against? None. And those abstaining? Is that carried?
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you. We move on to item 10 on the agenda, LDV driver salaries and market forces. There are 3 recommendations, and you'll find them on page 81 of the document pack. And I believe that the Executive Member for Recycling, Household Waste and Environmental Health will address this item to start with.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Recruitment of large goods vehicle drivers has been difficult since Brexit. So many drivers return to their countries of origin within the EU, leaving a national shortage of drivers. Other factors have been an ageing workforce and a national backlog of driver tests. This has impacted on our council in terms of the recruitment and retention of drivers in our recycling, waste and cleansing department. The council has 52 LGV drivers on the establishment, and despite training in-house applicants and an extensive recruitment campaign, we still have 10 vacancies. A number of job opportunities have been offered by the council, and despite the better working conditions offered by the council, these offers have not been accepted. The drivers are currently on grade 18 with a salary of 23,953 to 24,920, and the proposal today is to increase this to grade 21 on a salary of 28,371 to 29,439 from Thursday this week. There is a further 7 roles, 2 supervisors and 5 charge hands whose salaries are proposed to rise in a commensurate manner. I therefore propose this report as set out to increase LGV drivers' salaries from grade 18 to grade 21, to approve increases to related posts to maintain grade differentials, and finally to recommend that the garden waste charge is increased to £55 to contribute towards the cost of these pay increases, and that of course will be from the 1st of April next year. I hope everyone will join me in supporting our recycling and waste drivers who do a great job for everyone, week in, week out, and always with a smile. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. That has been proposed. Do I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Councillor Connett. Do we have comments, questions? Councillor Bullivant.
Thank you. 2 questions. Firstly, can you confirm how many of our drivers came from different parts of the world and have left the country and left our workforce since the time? And the second question is, more a technical one. Normally grading structure is based on skill levels associated with doing the job, and the salary level is a different application. What we appear to be doing here is upgrading through skill levels to give the people a fully deserved and an increase which I totally support. Are we doing the right thing here? Should we not just be looking at the salary level, or what is the change in skill level that we're implying through the change in grade structure? Thank you.
Councillor Dewhurst, can you respond to those 2 questions, please?
So I'm going to defer to officers for the second question, because I think our pay grade structure is set by council, and we can't change that, but I will leave officers to comment on that. As far as the first question is concerned, I'm not sure that we necessarily had drivers from overseas. It's the impact of them leaving the country with other driving workforces that's had the impact, in the sense that the major employers, the huge transport companies and the like, they lost vast numbers.
Across the whole range of local government salaries that we're offering, so we're reviewing that to see how appropriate we are, and that piece of work is just about to go out. So hopefully that answers the questions. Thank you.
Councillor Bullivant.
Thank you for the detailed answer, and I accept the points that you've made. I am seriously concerned, though, that we are potentially driving coach and horses through a grading structure which recognises skill levels to give somebody a salary increase. And I totally agree, these people deserve the increases you're proposing. I just caution that we're setting something in motion which may come back to bite us in the future. Thank you.
I think that's noted. Councillor McGregor?
Thank you, Chair. I'm kind of really struggling with some of the stuff that Councillor Dewhurst has run through. Now, before I go there, I fully accept that we do need to pay the drivers a better wage. It's been a concern for the whole period of this current administration that there's been a pay level for the waste team. I think we differ slightly from the others around us in that we are the one authority out of the four that employs directly our staff within our own function. Exeter and East Devon and Torbay use contractors, so they have a different facility available to them. It's up to the contractor to make it work within their contract. From our perspective as a council, when we came to administer in 2019, it was already clear that we were struggling to recruit drivers then. Councillor Dewhurst denied in this chamber the fact that Brexit was to blame and that drivers were going elsewhere and being attracted by better salaries when questioned directly, and that's a matter of record within council, questions and answers. It's something that should have been dealt with in 2009. We should have been recruiting and we should have been planning better in 2019. And I think it's a shame that we're at this stage now where actually we've got questions marks over the salaries that we're pushing up to, when in actual fact, this is something should have been dealt with nearly 4 years ago. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor. Councillor Petherick, I've seen your hand, but I'd like to give Councillor Dewhurst a chance to respond to Councillor McGregor first, please. Can we have a microphone down here, please?
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to come back. In terms of what I've said here in this council, I certainly have no recollection of ever having said the words that Councillor McGregor has alluded to me. The record will show that to be true or not. In terms of other councils in the area, South Hams have an in-house workforce, and Torbay's workforce is a council-owned company. So that is the difference. In terms of what this council has done for the workforce on our recycling, waste and cleansing workers, you will remember that 1 year ago we were here and put a market forces supplement for the entire workforce in those departments. So this council has reacted to payments, and we are a good employer, and I'm sure our workforce, the very fact that so many of our workforce are really, really long-term employees of this council, shows what Councillor McGregor is alluding to be untrue. Thank you.
Councillor Petherington.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm looking at the costings of this. I mean, I fully agree that we need to move this forward today. Looking at the cost implications, 92,000 this year, 244,000 next year. That's what, £330,000 that we will have to find. But a percentage of that will come from the increase in the garden waste bins. How much will that sort of take off this amount of 330,000? How many green bins are there, and how much will that reduce the figure of 330,000? Thank you.
Do you want to reply to that immediately? Can we have a microphone, please?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the revenue generated by the increase on the waste bins, of course, we won't know until the contracts with our customers, as it were, come in. So that's not an answer that can actually be, that's not a question that can be answered at this point. We have estimates in terms of what that is. It is purely that the increase in the green bins price is going up. It's going up in line with inflation, and I think it's important that people understand why that's going up, and for the reason that it is supporting our drivers' salaries. Thank you.
Councillor Petherick.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I prefer to come back on that, if I may, please, because let's base it on the actual number of green bins this year and add the increase rate onto that. So what sort of impact is it going to have, please?
Sorry, Managing Director.
Thank you. Bottom of page 84, there is the estimate is there, 125,000 additional income depending on subscription rates, as Councillor Dewhurst has said. So the estimate is 125,000, as Councillor Dewhurst has said. There is some elasticity potentially on the demand of that service around price. We will see and report back as we know when the renewals come next year, whether that figure, in the Section 151 officers' reports, whether that is an accurate figure or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, that's excellent. So we have to find 200,000 for this for next year. Thank you.
Councillor Connett.
Well, no, Chairman, because what Councillor Petherick is doing is adding the in-year cost now to next year's. As I understand it, and as set out in the report, the in-year cost for this year is met from vacancy rate savings being applied to that cost. Next year, the cost is set out on page 84 at £244,850, which the assumption of a £5 increase in the green bin charge delivers the 125. So there's just over £100,000 to be found for next year, and that's what Martin Flitcroft, Chief Financial Officer, is factoring into the budget, which will be coming to Council in the next month or so. So those things will be factored in. The reason why this report is here today and not as part of the budget is because we want to increase the pay line to retain and recruit drivers, essentially to maintain the one service every household gets every week from us. And ordinarily, we would not bring a request to increase the green bins outside of the budget, but in order to identify a contribution to that, that's why this is being put together now, Chairman. So it's a costed and budgeted programme. There is a cost that as yet needs to be identified, but will be dealt with as part of the budget for 2023-24, which Martin Flitcroft is currently working on with Councillor Keeling.
Thank you, Councillor Connett. Councillor Eden.
Thank you very much. In reply to Councillor Bullivant's comment about Brexit, I just want to say that Brexit is very clearly breaking Britain. It is the herd of elephants in the room here. And being somebody that likes evidence, I had a quick check online. And according to the Road Haulage Association, pre-Brexit, we employed as a country 600,000 HGV drivers, and that included 60,000 people, a tenth, from EU member states who were residing in Britain under the freedom of movement rules. This is an inevitable and awful fact. And I can only hope, now that we can see that the Conservatives and the Labour Party aren't in favour of freedom of movement, that the party that I am very much still a member of, the Liberal Democrats, will continue to say that we need freedom of movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eden. I think Councillor Hocking had a point.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick one, really. Although I don't suppose any of us should be sitting in this chamber and denying any worker a pay increase, and rightly so deserved. My problem is it's a knock-on effect to everybody else. You've talked about keeping percentages and differentials correct. What is the knock-on effect for the people that actually pick up the bins, do the sorting at the roadside, which on top of the drivers? Are they also going to keep their differentials right? In which case, what is the cost of that? I assume that when the managing director said that he was there was going to be a look at wages across the board, I'm assuming that he means that they would look at the differentials across the board, because otherwise we are going to start losing other workers other than drivers. We might have all the drivers, but unless we get all the workers that go with the drivers, we're not going to get anywhere. So my worry and my problem is, as a union person, is that we maintain the differentials across the board, and by increasing one group, you upset those differentials, and that is my big worry. I'm assuming that the cost, if we implement this today, is 92,700 just to increase the drivers' wages between now and the end of April. Am I correct? And if so, are those figures, where is that money coming from? Because you're not implementing the increase in the green bin until next April. So perhaps you could just tell us where the actual increase is coming from, bearing in mind that we keep getting told that this council has a black hole of £2 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hocking. Councillor Dewhurst, would you like to respond, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, in reply to Councillor Hocking, he will have just heard the leader explain that the cost for this year is borne by the fact that we have been running 10 drivers short, essentially throughout the year, and that has gone to pay the 92,700. In terms of what this is a market forces supplement, because the market has changed in terms of what drivers are expecting to be paid, and the council will look at as the managing director has said, jobs in general across this council, and the rest of the waste and cleansing team in due course. This is specifically for drivers. Thank you.
Councillor Malone.
Thank you. I do actually know a couple of people who would very much like these jobs at either pay scale. The problem being that they don't have the licence to drive a vehicle of more than 3.5 tonnes, as I believe they would require. I just wonder whether it costs between, and I know this because I've taken it myself, it costs between £2,500 and £4,000 to get an HGV licence at an academy, and that's if you pass on the first or second time. I worry that the sort of people we're trying to attract with these jobs are not the sort of people who can afford to put their family at this time £4,000 in a hole. And I wonder if a more imaginative approach might be to offer driver training to people that want these jobs on the condition that they stay in the job for a couple of years. I think that might be worth looking into. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dewhurst, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, thank you. So in my introduction, I did say that this council has been offering in-house training for drivers. So that is something that we are already doing. We have an enviable record in terms of employing our staff. We have many people in the waste and cleansing department who have been working for this council for many, many years. If Councillor Malone's friends had applied, and there've been a huge advertising campaign, jobs have been advertised on the website, if they'd been interested, they could have come along and applied for a job with the council. Thank you.
Councillor Malone, do you want to come back on that at all?
Yes, could Councillor Dewhurst please send me details of where they need to reply, because they haven't seen that and I haven't seen it.
Please just look on the website. It's there.
Well, I haven't seen it. No, I haven't seen it.
Well, it's there, I can assure you.
Councillor Hocking.
Yes, thank you, Chair, for allowing me to come back. Just one little question. Under the 3.2, where it's legal, it says market forces supplements do not form part of the employee's standard contract terms and conditions. It is a temporary addition to the contract of employment. They must be regularly reviewed and withdrawn if market forces change. Does that mean that if these drivers do get this granted today, they could in the future, if market forces change, lose that grading and be dropped back down in pay? Thank you.
Chair, the answer to the question is yes, as it's set out in the report. It's the market forces, it's a temporary uplift. If market forces change, the situation changes, then upon review, it may well be that that additional income or the market forces supplement is removed.
Thank you. Councillor Connett.
Thank you, Chairman. And the point raised by Councillor Hocking is very valid, and I'm grateful for the Head of Legal Services reply. But also, if colleagues look at page 84, the second from bottom paragraph, which begins market forces supplements, it goes on to pick up the point that Councillor Hocking had quite rightly identified, and it says, although market forces are designed to be applied and reviewed periodically and therefore may potentially be removed if the market shifts to lower salaries, that in reality, given the shortage, age profile and competitive nature of roles, we should expect that a market forces uplift will be a long-term commitment. So I think it's important that councillors realise that this proposal is response to market forces, and the council accepts that the market forces supplement may well be there for some time. And I think in the past, when the council has applied market forces supplements, in time the ordinary annual pay increases catch up, and they sometimes diminish the market forces. It's something that council is just going to have to keep under review, as the Managing Director said. But I hope that clarifies for all colleagues, and I'm grateful to Councillor Hocking for raising that point, because this isn't going to be a short-term measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Connett. Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Chair. On the matter of people applying for the roles as loader driver, and I appreciate Councillor Dewhurst perhaps isn't an expert on recruitment, but it's very, very clear when you're putting in adverts and you want to attract people that you might want to train, you have to state that in the advert. On the website, it doesn't say that. It says you have to have a Category C licence and a driver CPC and a digital tachograph card. So if those three requirements are required with no other option available throughout the rest of the description, you are not going to attract people with a 3.5-ton licence or perhaps even a 7.5-ton licence who may have the other elements, because what you're not saying there is that you have an in-house driver training scheme, and that is very, very clear. So you are actually automatically discounting people from applying. And that's a really important element. And if Councillor Dewhurst is really genuinely saying, let's get people in and train them, then we need to change the advert. Thank you.
Councillor Bullivant.
Thank you for allowing me to come back. Three basic questions following the questions that others councillors have raised. I'm increasingly concerned that we're using a skill level rating through the grading to affect the change, and we should in fact be having just specifically a market rate adjustment to give the numbers that the council wants, so people are fully aware of what their salary base is and they can change in the future. Secondly, can you tell me, please, we've mentioned the quality of training that we have and provide within the council. Can you just tell me how many people are currently undergoing that training to become qualified drivers? And thirdly, we have lots of numbers in here, but what we don't actually have is what is the proposed salary that or the salary band?
I think Councillor Dewhurst set that out in his presentation.
It's nothing in the written paperwork. Thank you.
Councillor Dewhurst.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of my presentation, I deliberately put the salary band in because it wasn't in the paper. I defer to officers on the other questions. I don't know. Is the waste and cleansing manager here? Yes.
What's his name? The officer's going to respond.
Thanks. Yeah, just to confirm on the training numbers, we've in the last 12 months...
Can you speak into the microphone, please? Yeah.
Sorry, is that better? So, to confirm on the training numbers, we've had 4 in-house members of staff pass their large goods vehicle licence within the last 12 months. They're all still with us. 3 of them are driving, 1 of them is a mechanic. We continue to canvass members of the rest of the team for support with training, which we do provide. And at this point in time, we've got 10 names on the list. From past experience, not all of those will go on to be suitable or capable, or they might change their mind, or they struggle even with the theory, some of them. But it's a good number that we've got now willing to go through the training and help us out of the situation we're in.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan. Yes.
Just a couple of points, really. I mean, if we approve this today, then the increases happen on Thursday. They happen immediately. And I've got to say, there is an urgency for this. We're 10 LGV drivers short vacancies. That's 10 crews that can't go out. And we've all been on the receiving end of the public messaging us when their waste isn't collected. People might not notice when management don't turn up, but they certainly notice when their bins aren't collected. So I'd say this is a matter of urgency. Let's get on and do it. Let's give these guys and girls, which is a difficult job in our lanes that we've got, in our streets that we've got, where people parking all over the place, so perhaps the grading is important. Let's get on and pay them what they deserve, because it's frontline workers that are the most necessary and most obvious when the frontline work isn't done. So I'm very much in favour of this. Let's get on and vote.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Swain.
I move that the question be now put. I move that the question be now put.
Which question?
The vote. Can we move to the vote?
The recommendation. Seconded. It has been proposed that we go to the vote now. We have been going around in circles a bit.
You're not going to let speak.
Councillor Hook, did you wish to make a final point?
Just very briefly.
Please.
Promise. First of all, thanks to various members who've made good points, and we're getting to the vote, and that's good. There are 3 reasons we're faced with this issue, one of which we're resolving ourselves, the salary structure, and that's absolutely right that we should. There were 2 others, the ageing population of our driving force and the impact of Brexit. And Councillor Eden did well to point out what she pointed out, and the impact of 60,000 drivers missing from the country, basically, and the impact that has on us. Can I suggest, or can I ask, if there's any support around the Chamber for that particular point being pointed out in a letter to the Prime Minister and our 2 MPs and anybody else who'd want to receive it, that there is a major impact here for local authorities. We are addressing it in the way we can. How will the government help us in that with the financial impact that's causing? I ask, therefore, if there's support around the Chamber for such a letter going.
Thank you, Councillor Hook. It has been proposed that we move to the vote, but I'll give Councillor Dewhurst a chance to draw a line under this, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I wrote a letter with the leader of Torbay Council and the leader of North Devon Council to the Secretary of State about this. I'm quite happy to canvass those leaders again to write to the Prime Minister, whoever, if this council feels that's a good thing to do.
Okay. Right, can we go back to the vote then? The 3 recommendations are on page 81 of the document pack. All those in favour, please. It looks unanimous. Any against? Any abstentions? That
That's
is
unanimous.
Thank you. We move on then to item 11 on the agenda, committee seat allocation. I'm a little confused about this one myself. I think Councillor Haynes. Are you to speak on this one, Councillor Haynes? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, members might note that the independent group, having gained one councillor, actually didn't gain any seats. However, this is due to the fact that previously our numbers were rounded up, and on this occasion it's been rounded down in the sort of to and fro. I don't have any particular problem with that. I will reallocate the places within our group. I think the beneficiaries of this are the South Devon Alliance, because they've managed to gain an extra seat because of all the roundings going on. I would certainly move the recommendation, Chair. I don't have anything else to say on it.
Thank you. That's the recommendation on page 4? Yes.
Yes, as on the table.
As on the table. Do we have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Bullivant has seconded. Any comments or questions? Councillor Dawes.
Thank you. Good to hear that South Devon Alliance are winners. We won't be taking up our place on the Standards Committee because, due to our experience with it over since 2019, it appears not to be fit for purpose. Doesn't have the correct amount of introspection, and until it can reflect on the actions it's taken and the advice it's been given from external bodies, then we won't be able to partake in that committee. Sorry about that. Thank you.
I think that's noted. No further comments. Oh, Councillor Bullivant. Just got in.
In light of the last statement, could this vacant seat be allocated to the independent group, please?
Go to the leader to respond to that, please.
Thank you, Chairman. But the seat is the South Devon Alliance's. They're entitled not to fill it. They're entitled to appoint another councillor from a different group to it. If, as I understand the regulation, if the holding group doesn't appoint, I think within a period of 30 days, the council is then able to allocate the seat to an interested councillor. And my view would be to leave matters for the 30 days so that the South Devon Alliance are not denied their opportunity to fit it, even though the group leader has very kindly acknowledged today that they won't be appointing, that they may change their mind, they could change their mind, and the council should wait the required 30 days and then fill it appropriately if it remains vacant. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Can the monitoring officer confirm that the leader's right that there is a 30-day grace period for this?
Can confirm, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so that is the proposal. Can we go to a vote, please? Those in favour? Those against? And any abstentions? 3.
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. We move to item 12 on the agenda, which has to do with council representation on the Torbay and South Devon NHS Foundation Trust. 2 councillors have expressed interest in representing the council on the trust, and I understand there might be a nomination for another. If I'm mistaken, I'm mistaken.
Councillor Cox, was it?
Pardon?
Was it Councillor
Yes.
Cox? I think
Has he gone?
he's engaged in something else about the ducks.
No, okay. In which case we have Councillor McGregor and Councillor Russell, who will both be given 2 minutes to address the council, but I have to ask them both, please, to leave the room, and we'll call them in one at a time to hear their 2 minutes and ask them to remain outside whilst the vote goes ahead. Can I ask Councillor McGregor and Councillor Russell to leave the room, please? Chris is what?
Get the councillors in now.
Yes.
Which councillor you can have them first?
Okay, we're going to ask each of the councillors to come in and address us for 2 minutes as to why they should be considered to represent Teignbridge District Council on this trust. And going alphabetically, I'm going to ask Councillor McGregor to come in first. Where's he gone? Councillor McGregor, you can just hold on 1 second, please. The leader's just gone out for a moment.
Has he? Yeah. Okay, I shall grab a seat then.
It's the leader in the... Do we need to wait? Do we need to wait? I think we should go ahead. Councillor McGregor, could you give us your 2 minutes on why you'd like to represent Teignbridge District Council on this NHS Foundation Trust?
How can he vote if he's not listening?
He can't. He can't.
Oh, okay. We will wait for a moment, please. Beg your pardon. Hmm?
Make sure Councillor Russell's comfortable with the extra weight.
Yeah.
Are you waiting because it's the leader rather than a member of the...
No, it's just a member of the council.
But
But
I think you must be going to take another blow. Under that question of just... My view is you should just carry on. He's a member of the council and no different. It's a matter for you, Chair, but he's here.
Right, he's here. Thank you, Chair. Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to stay here in my seat. I think, you know, it's a crowded room, COVID allowing and all that still.
You have 2 minutes.
In terms of, since my time on the council as a newcomer back in 2019, I've gained quite a lot of experience. One of those elements of experience was working with the Devon Health and Wellbeing Board at Devon County Council, where I was interacting extensively with members of the NHS, the NHS Foundation Trusts, the CCG, and with the Chief Executive. During that period, I was privy to a lot of information that comes through these organisations, which isn't generally put out to councils. What I would like to do, bearing in mind, and obviously with the time that's short, is to change the way that we look at the information that we're getting to try and influence better how the NHS Foundation Trust interacts with councils, particularly through planning, and with the new local plan coming up, how that is going to impact on them. Commissioning of services is really important, particularly in a community where, as noted by Councillor Jeffries in the report that she presented earlier, our populace is growing more old by the day, and the proportion of people over 50 is increasing generally. So it's about commissioning and how that impacts on the local area. And as Councillor Petherick brought up at a planning meeting recently, the NHS are asking for funds now from planning. So it's to look at the whole thing and actually represent the council to the Foundation Trust Board, but also to be able to feed back information on how that looks and how it should perhaps be generated. And I'm more than happy to work with any member of any group on getting the best deal possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, McGregor. That's about your 2 minutes. Thank you very much indeed. Would you mind leaving the room again and ask Councillor Russell to join us, please? Where would you be comfortable? Thank you, Councillor Russell. You have 2 minutes.
Right, okay. Well, I've been a member of this council for over 40 years, and I've done quite a lot of various things in that time, but I've always taken a particular interest in the NHS and social services. So I'll just confine my address to you with my experience with the NHS since the 1990s, when I was appointed a non-executive director of South Devon Healthcare Trust. Then I was moved to start the Exeter and District Community NHS Trust, which was newly formed with the NHS changes in the legislation. And I had a statutory mental health hospital manager responsibility, reviewing the care and sections of detained mental health and learning disabled patients. And during that period, I served as the Southwest representative to the NHS Trust Foundation. This was in the early days of the NHS reforms at that time, and I was privileged to be able to influence policy making at that time. I've chaired various regional selection panels for specialist registrar appointments and regional sifting and interviewing panels for future non-executive directors. I've chaired the Exeter Hospitals Heritage Trust, established for the protection and archiving of historical medical records. In 1998, I was appointed Honorary Research Fellow at the Department of Medical History, Exeter University, assisting the setting up of continuing professional courses for the management of medical records. I was a speaker at the 1990 GPs Conference at the NEC on the protection of historical medical records and the fledgling electronic records management systems, which I suppose you're getting familiar with today. I was also appointed member of Ofwat, but that's a different one. That's not really NHS. Ofwat, the Water Board, well, it's here and there, isn't it?
Just about had 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well,
so
that's
perhaps
about
you
it
wrap
then,
up.
Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Russell. I'll ask you to leave the room again, please. Very well, councillors, you have heard the presentations from Councillors McGregor and Councillor Russell.
I have a quick question.
Can I speak or not?
I probably shouldn't vote because I'm married to Andrew, but on the other hand, I would never ever vote for a Conservative to be in charge of health. So does anybody mind, does anyone, oh sorry, I wouldn't vote for a Tory, but I'm married to Andrew. So anyone have a feeling about that?
Yeah, she's got nothing to do with it.
Sorry?
She has an interest, no, she doesn't.
I'm deaf as well, so I didn't hear you, Phil.
Councillor Eden, I don't think it's a matter for other people. It's for you to decide. If you think you have an interest, then you must declare it and not vote. I don't think you can put it to council.
I think I shouldn't vote.
Fine, thank you.
But I'm trying mind control on other... mind control, but I'm not voting.
Thank you. The Vice Chair would like to make a point.
Members might be interested why I didn't actually put myself up for this particular post. As you know, I've been a campaigner to try and save, and still am, Teignbridge Hospital from closure. And I felt that it was no good me putting myself forward to sit on this when I didn't actually know the position of this council. I don't believe this council has ever made a decision or not to support the fight to keep Teignbridge Hospital open. And that's why I felt, well, it's no good me putting my name up to represent Teignbridge District Council on this NHS Trust, because I'm supposed to be representing what you members want. So I'm happy to let these people fight it out in a straight vote. But I have to say that on the formation of the new council, I would be interested in representing if I can get myself elected again in May, I would be interested in representing this council on this post in the future if I can get myself elected and we can get this council to get behind saving Teignbridge Hospital. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clarence. That is noted. Members, as I said, we've heard from Councillors McGregor and Councillor Russell. It is now simply up to us in a show of hands. I'll go in the same order as... Pardon? Could we have a confidential vote? Is that a proposal?
Yeah.
Is that seconded? Councillor Hook has seconded. Councillor Gordon Hook has seconded. So, can we go to a confidential vote?
Well, you need to, you've got to get the consensus first. Yeah. You've had a proposal and a second. The council needs to vote on that proposal.
Okay, we've had a proposal that this goes to a confidential vote. Those in favour of it being a confidential vote, please raise your hand.
Can you put your hands up really clearly? Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Is that what colleagues make it? 12?
Those against a confidential vote?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'll make that. Did you make it 13? Because it's very close.
With a majority of 1, the proposal has been rejected. So we will not have a confidential vote. We shall have a show of hands. And going in the same order, alphabetical order as we went for the presentations, those in favour of Councillor McGregor being TDC's representation on the Torbay and South Devon NHS Foundation Trust, please raise your hand. Could you raise your hand clearly? Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Can you still put your hands up again? I want to make sure
Hands up again so we can just check the count, please.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. Do you make it 9, Trish and Chris? Yeah, 9.
Thank you. Those in favour of Councillor Russell being our representative on the Torbay and South Devon NHS Foundation Trust, please raise your hands.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 to make that.
So that's 9 to in favour of Councillor McGregor and 6 in. Therefore, this council has appointed Councillor McGregor to be our representative on the South Devon NHS Foundation Trust. Would you ask them to come back in, please? Very bizarre. I don't know why. That wasn't discussed in advance. Thank you, Councillors McGregor and Councillor Russell. It is my duty as chair to give you the results of the election, and I can say that Teignbridge District Council has elected Councillor McGregor to be our representative on the Torbay and South Devon NHS Foundation Trust. I'd like to thank both councillors for offering up their services for this very important role. Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to thank all my colleagues for their support, and also to thank Councillor Russell for participating in the vote and the process to try and get this role filled. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Russell has not indicated any wish to say anything, so We'll move on then to item 13 on our agenda, which is a notice of motion which Councillor Bullivant will present. Notices of motion are referred to the appropriate committee meeting. If two-thirds of this meeting today wish to debate it, then we will debate it today. Otherwise, it will be referred to the executive. Councillor Bullivant.
Thank you, Count. Thank you for the opportunity to bring this motion forward, and I'm grateful to those members who supported this motion. There are few, if any, in this chamber who will be able to recall a time when God Save the Queen was not our national anthem. We have all been beneficiaries of the vast changes that have taken place in Teignbridge since Her Majesty took the throne in 1953. Our longest-serving monarch, a queen who dedicated all her long reign to her people, and someone who will be remembered with great affection by future generations. I believe it is appropriate and deserved that we recognise the passing of our Queen by planting a tree that will be a highlight for future generations who will be able to identify with these times. We also welcome the new King, King Charles III, who has stood by his mother's side throughout her long reign, supporting her and preparing for his new role. I think it's appropriate that at the same time as commemorating his mother, we plant a different complementary tree to acknowledge the new king. I therefore propose that this council approves the purchase and planting of 2 appropriate trees and ask that on behalf of all residents of Teignbridge that the cost is paid for by a £50 contribution from each councillor's community fund. Thank you.
Councillors, you've heard the proposal. Does that need to be seconded? Councillor Eden is proposing that we debate it.
Can I just clarify that an invitation to contribute was in the motion? Councillor Bullivant has just proposed that that contribution be made. Can I clarify that, please? It's an invitation to contribute, isn't it? Invitation. Thank you.
Councillor Eden has proposed that we debate this today. If two-thirds of the people in the room wish to debate it, then we shall do so. Those in favour of debating this notice of motion... Pardon? Oh, we haven't got a seconder. It is seconded by Councillor McGregor. Those in favour of debating the notice of motion today rather than sending it to the executive. Those in favour of debating today, please raise your hands.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Thank you. Those against debating it today and referring it to the executive?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's not two-thirds. Not two-thirds, no.
So
there wasn't two-thirds in favour of debating, so Chair, through you.
It's, so the notice, Councillor Bullivant's notice of motion is referred to the executive. Thank you, councillors. Item 14 on our agenda. I just wondered, do people want a very brief comfort break? Could we have a brief comfort break, please? It is now, by my watch, 25 past. Can we come back in 10 minutes at 25 to 12, please? put my microphone on. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming back. We are coming to item 14 on the agenda, but just before we do, may I remind councillors, please, of the finance briefing that will follow this meeting. I've agreed with Martin Flitcroft. We'll go straight into the finance briefing at the end of this meeting rather than take a break, because it's quite possible that colleagues might leave the site and come back late. So we'll go straight into the finance briefing as soon as this meeting ends. So we come to item 14, councillor questions. We have a number of questions from Councillor Dawes. Do you wish to? Thank you.
Hi, thanks for that. The first question I put forward was for the Chair of Standards. It was about the advice that I was given from the monitoring officer, stating that if I took part in a debate, that will constitute a criminal offence. And I asked the Chair of Standards to confirm if that advice was correct. And the answer was yes, I can confirm the monitoring officer's guidance was correct. I'd like to put on record a supplementary question to that, because at the extraordinary council meeting on the 17th of November, the managing director stated that if you had a pecuniary interest, you could be committing a criminal offence, but further stated in that meeting that my interest was a registrable interest. As is noted earlier in the meeting today, that when Councillor Bullivant asked the question, he was given the advice it's down to members to consider their interests. So I'm still wondering why I was approached by the monitoring officer and told that my interests were constituted a criminal offence. It's clear to me that an unpaid director of a CBS isn't a pecuniary interest as defined by the Localism Act. So can I ask to be referred to the specific legal provisions that could have made my conduct as an unpaid director in the July full council meeting a criminal offence?
Is that supplementary question directed to Councillor Linda Petherick?
She answered it. I'd very happily take clarification from the monitoring officer as he's here today.
Do you want an answer, Chair?
Yes, please.
Councillor Dawes is fully aware that we've engaged in quite considerable written correspondence on this, where he's had complete and utter advice from me, which remains the case. Councillor Dawes continually, conveniently overlooks the fact that your code of conduct that's been adopted by this council at Appendix A includes unpaid directorships as a disclosable pecuniary interest. The Localism Act is the starting point. The Localism Act also provides, at section 33, I believe, for this council to add to its interests and what it considers to be disclosable pecuniary interests or other matters in its code of conduct, which it has done. That is what binds Councillor Dawes, and that is the basis of the advice that I gave him. It makes it clear, Appendix 10 in your code of conduct, that an unpaid directorship is a disclosable pecuniary interest. As such, any member with a disclosable pecuniary interest should not take part in a meeting, should not vote, and should depart from the meeting venue. Failing to do so, and should that member take part in the debate, that, as it states in the Localism Act, is a criminal offence. He was merely guided on that. The decision ultimately is one for him and each and every one of you to make. That remains the case, Chair.
And my supplementary, I'll put in writing, because I would like to be referred to the specific legal provisions that made my conduct as an unpaid director of a CBS a criminal offence, because I'm afraid the monitoring officer is misleading the council.
Thank you, Councillor Dawes. You will put your supplementary question in writing?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Can we move on to your second question, please, Councillor Dawes?
Yes, my second question was to Councillor Nina Jeffries about the steering group for the Market Hall and Alexandra Theatre. Why I was excluded from that meeting, having repeatedly asked to be involved in that. And I'm going to get an answer in a verbal response.
Yes. Councillor Jeffries has indicated she will give a verbal response.
Thank you, Councillor Dawes. Your expertise in the field is welcomed. Initially, the sessions were being held online through Zoom or Teams. The groups were very small and with limited numbers of members to remove the duplication of having members there and to allow discussion between stakeholders who may not be used to be in a formal setting, we had smaller groups. So essentially to put people at ease, we held 3 steering group meetings online. They were following the terms of reference framework for that group that was set out. Meeting 4 was due to be on the 18th of May, and that had to be delayed, as I understand, due to the 3 design options not being ready. And also, as I understand, the steering group work was subsequently suspended whilst additional work was undertaken regarding inflation and additional costs. The plan was to widen the scope of engagement. So that was always the plan, was to invite members with particular expertise, such as yours, to come in at later dates to discuss work where it was relevant. So that was including inviting members with specialist knowledge at a later date. Once we had the preferred design options, so we never really got to that stage, therefore ensuring that the right expertise is involved at the right time. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Would it be possible to have a written version of that answer, please?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. And subsequently I have a supplementary, because I do know the answer, and I will look forward to getting it in writing. Your desire to have a smaller meeting is perfectly fine. I can understand that. That doesn't detract from my rights as a councillor to attend meetings should I feel it is within my sort of remit of a councillor and to do business. So what I asked for is how that decision was arrived at, and how is that consistent with the Local Government Act 1972 amended and the Local Authorities Executive Agreements, Meeting and Access to Information, England Regulations 2012.
Thank you. I'll provide a written answer if that's okay with you.
Is that acceptable,
Yes,
Councillor Dawes?
thank you. I'd like it in writing.
Thank you very much. Your next question, is question 3, relating to the spend on the Future High Street Fund.
Yes, so I asked a question, wasn't entirely sure who to ask the question to, but it was relating to spend of taxpayer money to get to REBA level 4 for the new cinema. There's a very full answer given by the leader, which I appreciate. The over £500,000 has been spent already on a project that is yet to receive planning permission. I don't understand the response to the question, because the answer seemed to contradict itself about the money spent, saying that 301,284 have been spent, and then in the following paragraph it says that none of this money has actually yet been spent. The programme of the cinema commenced on the 13th of the 6th, 2022, and it is to conclude on 25th of the 5th, 2023. REBA Stage 4 is a technical designer stage, normally undertaken when planning consent is granted. What I would like to know is why the council is ploughing on with a project that is yet to receive planning permission, and what element of taxpayer fund is at risk should planning permission not be granted for this project, which has huge challenges in just the planning aspects.
Councillor Connick, can you respond to that? Microphone, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We'll provide a written response. Thank you.
Councillor Dawes, you will be provided with a written response. Is that acceptable?
Yes, I'll look forward to that. Thank you. My next question was to Councillor Conant asking the leader if he would consider a proposal for an alternative multi-stream cinema as drafted by community groups working with the TDC planning policies. The response was, as a local authority, Teignbridge will consider all planning applications. My supplementary is that wasn't actually what I was asking. I know groups can go out there and put forward planning applications, but as every councillor here would have seen from their inbox, there is a scheme that's been designed by Jeremy Newcomb for a cinema that is a 3-screen cinema with 1 retail unit underneath it on the footprint of the New Look building, a scheme that has much less impact on a listed building, a scheme that would be defined as viable by the report. I know this council likes its third-party reports. The report that was presented by the cinema consultants, and I would like to know why the council. I would like to know that the council will consider that, because I would also encourage all councillors here to look at that scheme, because the significant hurdles that the planning application has to get over would not be as high with the alternative scheme. So what I would like to know is that the council will consider that scheme, and I'd like to know why the council has not consulted with the creative community and creatives in the town as it's ploughed on with this unviable, undefendable carbuncle of a project.
Councillor Connett.
Well, I'm not sure where to go with that particular rambling supplementary, Chairman, but in essence, I think my response provides the answer to the question which was asked, rather than the narrow abstract that Councillor Dawes reread to the Council. The Council is progressing with the project, and just, I think, a week ago, Council confirmed its intention to continue with the Future High Street Fund programme and the cinema funding. It's very clear here that the local planning authority, Teignbridge, is required to consider all planning applications. The next sentence also points out that alongside that responsibility, the council would also need to consider separately matters relating to its property and land holdings where proposals are made for council assets. So there are 2 functions of the council, one as a planning authority, one as a landholder. The council has also established over some many months, years in fact, its intention to invest over £9 million of government grant into the Future High Street Fund to support and grow the economy of Newton Abbot, to increase footfall, to support retail, protect jobs, and do many things. So while I understand that Councillor Dawes wishes to promote and further a different scheme, at the moment, here as a council, this council has supported the investment for the cinema as set out, and I'm not going to comment on its planning merits for fear of predetermination. Chairman, I'm a sub-member of the Planning Committee. I'm not going to comment on the planning merits scheme. I can well understand that Councillor Dawes wishes to promote his own scheme, for which he is a member of a different organisation. I'm not going to comment on that, Chairman. My answer is my answer both to his substantive and supplementary question. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Connett. Councillor Dawes, can we move on to your 5th question?
Yeah, my 5th question was, would the leader of the council confirm he'd resign with immediate effect if TDC was adjudged to have operated unlawfully?
And the leader has indicated that he will give a verbal response.
Well, Chairman, this is a hypothetical question. So in the hypothetical circumstances that there was such a report, I would read it and give the details due consideration at the time. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, my supplementary to that is that no functioning organisation can operate outside of the law.
Is that a question,
No.
Councillor Dawes?
Would you please allow me to get past one sentence to pose the actual question? So would the leader confirm that he agrees with that statement? No functioning organisation can operate outside of the law. Do you agree with that?
I'm not to engage in hypothetical discussion, either as a supplementary or as not.
That's a supplementary question. Are you...
Well, Chairman, in response to that, I'm not going to engage in hypothetical conversations with Councillor Dawes. Thank you.
Question 6. question to Councillor Gary Taylor. Can you confirm that the previously scrapped Walborough DPD master plan is being revived?
Councillor Taylor has indicated he will give a verbal response. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you for your questions, Councillor Dawes. What I can confirm is that the Walborough DPD master plan, which was halted in February 2020, realising a saving to the council of £122,000, is not being revived. As noted in the minutes of the February 2020 meeting, many of the issues within the scope of the DPD were to be considered in the now imminent new local plan, along with other policies that would benefit the whole of the district, such as tackling climate change. As members will know, the new local plan has been making good progress over this summer and autumn, and will come before full council on the 15th of December. To have prepared both the DPD and the new local plan together would not only have consumed additional officer resources and finances, it would have also delayed the local development scheme, the timetable for the elements of the new local plan.
Councillor Dawes.
Yeah, my supplementary to that is the saving of £120,000. Sorry, it's been so long since it was scrapped. Could I ask if that included the spend of £60,000 on the environmental survey that concluded that the Greater Horseshoe Bat populated the area vastly?
In response, I can tell Councillor Dawes that the full breakdown of all of the costs that were incurred in the production of the DPD can be found in the minutes of the meeting or in the report.
Councillor Dawes.
Yeah, okay, we'll move on to question 7. There's a citizens body, I can't quite remember the name actually, the group that's been put forward together by the council of members of the public to consult on the plan for Walborough and NA3. Can you confirm that the interested parties such as parish councils, residents associations and ward councillors will be included in this process?
So question 7, if I could read it out to members, is can you confirm that the representative bodies of the electorate, residents associations and parish councils, along with ward councillors, will be consulted in this process? In terms of the process, given that the DPD is not to be revived, is perhaps not really what I've recently prepared for the answer for the question, but what I can say is that the Walborough Residents Association and Abbots Kerswell Parish Council have already submitted a number of comprehensive responses to the various parts of our new local plan over an extended period, for which I would like to offer my thanks. I hope they will continue to respond, along with those many other individuals, representative bodies and parish councils, when consultation on the final draft of the new local plan is launched in January, which will continue many policies which I'm sure will be recognised as applicable to development close to the residents they represent, in addition to those saved policies, including those for NA3, contained in the current local plan.
Can you, question number 8, can you publish the methodology of constructing the Citizens' Assembly and how it might represent public opinion on NA3?
So in answer to that, Chair, a Citizens' Assembly or Citizens' Panel has been formed to take part in 6 design code workshops regarding NA1, Houghton Barton, to the northwest of Newton Abbot, with the first of these taking place last Friday. There were 20 attendees on the day, and the workshop was well received. Many of the themes discussed would have chimed with residents of other areas of Newton Abbot, including neighbours of the NA3 development area, with topics such as long-range landscape views, connecting to nature and space to meet friends and neighbours. I can confirm that further details on this initiative will be published in the members' newsletter, with the update briefings with local councillors also being arranged.
My supplementary to that is the original question. Can you publish the methodology of constructing the Citizens' Assembly?
Councillor Taylor.
Yes, so that will be published.
Does that answer you, Councillor Dawes?
But I can also report, Chair, that the district district-wide design code is now in draft form and is being ready to be appended to the new local plan. Officers are also due to meet with the Design Council Design Review Panel in the next 2 weeks to review progress with the overall year-long project as part of the National Design Code Pathfinders programme, for which Teignbridge was selected as one of only 25 councils across the country.
Councillor Dawes, can we move to your question number 9?
Yes, my question number 9 is sort of irrelevant really, because the question is how will the council ensure that their own master plan for NA3 will be implemented? There is no master plan for NA3. It's fallen into local planning policy, so it's being done piecemeal. But I'd be interested to know how the council would implement a master plan if there were one.
Okay, just perhaps if we could move on also to, if I could answer 9 and 10 together. So question 10 is how will TDC, how will Teignbridge get around the plan that PCL planning put forward as at the same time? So Chair, questions 9 and 10 are both based on the incorrect assumption that the Walborough DPD master plan that was halted in February 2020 would now be revived. With your permission, therefore, I propose to answer these 2 linked questions with a single response. An excerpt from a paragraph, for the record, paragraph 26, page 9, from the letter of the 3rd of June 2020 from the decision officer of what was then the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government to David Seaton at PCL Planning regarding PCL's application for an award of costs against Teignbridge District Council in the matter of the allowed planning appeal on land at Walborough Barton by the Secretary of State, which states, in relation to master planning, this has been the subject of lengthy discussions and negotiations during the application process, with iterations of a master plan evolving during the consideration of the application. Given the requirements of policy NA3 and the importance of the document to the proposed development, it was not unreasonable for the Council to give close scrutiny to its content and to the processes that led to its production. The Council also undertook its own master planning exercise, seeking to proactively test sustainable options for overall delivery of the allocated site. In the event, the Council was satisfied that the final iteration of the appellant's master plan was sufficiently close to its aspirations for the site that further matters could be left as reserved matters. This was considered a reasonable stance for Teignbridge to take, and with no time spent at the inquiry on this matter, and with all other matters taken into account, I am pleased to remind members that no award of costs were made against this District Council. To be clear, that while a number of development companies are now engaging with each other and the Council in bringing forward and delivering NA3, there is not a requirement for a further overarching planning document to be prepared for this Newton Abbot development area. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, I do, thank you for answering both those questions in one go. I do have a supplementary for that, which is I'd ask the councillor concerned to reflect on the fact that he's reiterating the statements from as we know government departments that are enforcing development on local councils, and to reflect on the fact that without a master plan it's impossible for this council to carry out its obligations under an environmental and a climate change emergency with any credibility. Total failing and failure of this administration. I'd ask every member of this council to reflect on that.
In answer, Chair, I would say that Councillor Dawes is obviously not listening to the responses that I'm giving him. There is a master plan for this area, and certainly I do reflect on the fact that it's the Secretary of State that is giving judgment on NA3, and I have a lot of sympathy with the residents of the area in that a better scheme could not have come forward for that site.
No further supplementary, Councillor Dawes?
That was my supplementary.
Fine, thank you. That brings us to the end of item 14 on our agenda. It is recommended that under section 100A 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the meeting now during consideration of the following item on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 3 of Financial Matters of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act. I propose, therefore, that we move into a Part 2 session. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Wrigley, thank you. Can we have a show of hands, those in favour of moving into Part 2? Anybody against moving into Part 2? Do we have any abstentions?
That's carried, Chair.
That is carried. So we move into Part 2 for the consideration of the report from the Teignbridge District Council Housing Development, and I ask the Executive Member for Homes, Communities and Cost of Living to propose the recommendation.